Sheikh, you've been talking a lot since you've been coming and teaching us these things about kids, about mental health, physical health, how to science of sciences, everything that we could think of about raising our kids. But we've left out one thing, that some of our kids are becoming teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're starting to have feelings for boys and for girls. What about sexuality?
You know, Brother Ismail, being coming from a different background and so on, if you did not bring this up, I bet you that the brothers wouldn't have talked about it. Unfortunately, we try to hide. While Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us those issues should be discussed. You know, many parents ignore the most important thing, the hormonal changes which take place as natural and normal. And they ignore that, and they do not notice that there should be some change in the attitude, in the behavior, in providing the children with the proper dose of the sexual education.
Okay.
Well, the word sexual education is a very big word.
How to deal with our children when they attain the age of puberty?
Well, that always discussed, and that always explained in details. We discussed some before, but inshallah we're going to elaborate on all of that. But before that, Ya Osama, since I brought up the word sexual education, for those who live in the West, they're very familiar with the word, because actually it's a class which girls have to attend.
We have to take it too, and starting at
So
fourth
did you?
grade. Yeah, in fourth grade up all the way through high school, we have to take it.
I can tell you that I'm being fortunate that I didn't have to attend similar classes. It's actually an invitation to be on the loose.
Yes.
To commit whatever you wish and desire. It teaches the gay's rights and that it's okay, it's natural. And it's natural to have a relationship with the
opposite sex.
With the opposite sex, or even with the same sex, if you feel this is your, you know.
No, it's natural to want to
Is
touch
there a
yourself.
final exam for that subject?
I don't know about that, but being around people who attend that, this is awful. This is very destructive, and this is, of course, you see the results. That the kids are, you know, they compete and they brag who lost his virginity first. And so
in my high school, we had I graduated 10 years ago from high school, and we had a daycare center in the high school for the girls who went to school that had children that were.
Talking about a high school, across from my house in the States, I have an elementary school. Elementary school which has a daycare and a babysitter. Why? Because there was a girl, 11 years old, who was pregnant. She goes to the school with her baby. Imagine, why? Because the abuse of the subject of sexual education and, you know, the abuse of the freedom, you know. But everything was put in order in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us that those changes happen and take place. So you have to admit the fact that that happens. And, you know, if it doesn't happen, you wouldn't be here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the sexual issues in the Quran, not only in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but look at the difference in a very modest way. It taught us about very, very delicate issues in the Quran. For instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the believers in Surah Al-Mu'minun, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. The word farj is a very decent word to describe the private part of a man or a woman, so that the parents can use, and they should feel very comfortable with using this word with their children for a boy or a girl. Farj. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the believers as they safeguard their private parts, meaning they do not commit any illegal act of sexual intercourse or, you know, its introductions. So they safeguard their private parts. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, يسألونك عن المحيض قل هو أذى فاعتزلوا النساء في المحيض ولا تقربوهن حتى يطهرن. They ask you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, concerning what? Al-mahid, menstruation, the period which women experience. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give the explanation of mahid, and it is harmful, so that a man should avoid having a relationship with his wife while having her menses. You know, very, very interesting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran about homosexuality and how awful and bad it is. وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. So pointing to homosexuality as odd and awful is not natural, is not normal.
Yeah.
So Lut, peace be upon him, was addressing his people as that you are committing a fahisha, an illegal sexual act, which no one before you have committed. So the Quran tackles all those issues, and then he emphasizes on the fact that وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't you go near zina. And wouldn't it be better to say, don't you commit zina? No.
Don't go near it.
Don't go near it. How would you go near it? It begins with
The eyes.
the eyes.
Yeah.
Eyes. And I think we have covered this when we were talking about what Ismail.
Looking
That kind of seeking permission. Or
Exactly, seeking permission. Because the Prophet ﷺ has said that seeking permission was prescribed for one reason, another. So that you don't even accidentally see something which should not be seen. When a man said to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, do I have to seek permission and knock on the door before entering upon my mother?
Yeah.
So the Prophet ﷺ said that, would you like to see her undressed? He said, no way. He said, then you have to, seek permission. And that, of course, have to handle in a very delicate way. So that you have to consider the different ages, different levels of understanding. You don't come to a child 5 years old and talk to him about homosexuality. And talk to your girl who's 7 years old about the period. No, it's not time yet. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, advise us to order our children before the puberty age to seek permission during 3 times of the day before entering even upon their parents. Do you remember them, Ya Afdal? The first time is من قبل صلاة الفجر, before dawn,
after Salat al-Isha,
and
at noon.
At noon,
Yeah.
and after صلاة العشاء, وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة ومن بعد صلاة العشاء. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained, because these are the times which many a person tend to rest and do what? تضعون ثيابكم. You take off your clothes. You wear your sleep clothes and so on. Pajamas. Maybe that you're having a relation with your wife. You don't want your children to see anything like that.
Yeah.
So those times are a must for the children before the puberty age to seek permission so that they start to learn. As they grow older and they understand, then they should seek permission during all times like adults. Exactly.
Yeah.
Knocking on the door before entering, and if you hear no response, you do not enter. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us in the Quran, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. Say, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to the believing men, يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. This is such a beautiful word. يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, to lower off their gaze. Not all the time, but sometimes. When? Whenever you see something that's prohibited for you to see. Seeing the awra of a woman or a man who's prohibited for you to see. Talking about the awra, that, we have to understand that there is a designated body part which you're not supposed to see, even of a man, which is what, Ismail?
You can't see from the knees to the belly button.
From the belly button to the knees.
Yeah.
Even your own brother. Even your own dad. And similarly, parents are not allowed to look at the awra of their children. At what age? This is a very important question. Because till the age of 4, the kids do not really have awra to the parents, They change them, they change their diaper, they give them a bath, and so on. At the age of 4, the awra becomes al-awra al-mughallada, or the major awra, which is a very, very strict area that even parents now should avoid looking at, which is the private parts and the behind, the bottom. Okay? Well, sometimes kids at the age of 6 and 7, they start to grow maturer and they understand. And a girl would look pretty and she would be desired. In this case, she would be treated as A girl who reached the puberty age, so that you're not supposed to look at any of her body parts. If she have developed a chest and so on, well, you should avoid that, even though she's your daughter and so on. Okay?
Yeah.
So when the child starts understanding, and when the child starts showing some symptoms of maturity, then the aura will become the aura of a man. Some people wait until the girl reaches the puberty age and say, today you start putting on the hijab. How about the last 12 years? She didn't recognize hijab at all. Now she'll be suffocated. You know, it's going to be very, very difficult.
You hear that all the time. They're still young, they're still young, they're still young. She's 25. When's she going to put on hijab?
I know.
Get them used to it.
Yeah. And you know what? We have to keep in mind, this is a very, very touchy subject and very, very sensitive, especially in conservative societies like Muslim communities and so on. So it's really recommended for the father to address his son about the sexual education whenever it is adequate. Okay?
Yeah. And the mother to do the daughters.
And the mother would address the needs of her daughter at the proper age. And of course, before the period, she would start addressing her as, you know, it's normal for girls to experience this and this and that. You know, so we have to keep in mind, sexual education is also the responsibility of the parents. I was lucky enough to study at Al-Azhar at the age of 12. We were taught all of that at school, but the proper way, the proper words were used. Actually, since we were studying fiqh, and I enjoyed that because that was the first time. I mean, I understand that my parents would never have discussed anything like this with me. But now you are prepared to be a scholar and to handle those issues with others, you know. So even though we have never heard of menstruation before, the teachers started discussing the concept of ghusl, taking a bath with the intention of removing the major impurity, discuss with us very sensitive issues. We were in public, I mean in classrooms, but we were taught the proper way. Versus, of course, the sexual education, which, you know, totally outlaw and awful.
I remember that very
hold on to that, because I have to go check on the dinner, and we can get back to that after I get back.
I'm extremely hungry.
Yeah, so I have to make sure we don't burn it. Last time I burned it.
Barakallahu feek.
Ya Sheikhna, what would be some advice on trying not to sexualize or give our children sexual stimulants?
It is very important not to expose your children to sexually stimulant things, whether it's movies, video games, or internet chatting, or etc. Yani, for instance, the Prophet ﷺ taught us in a beautiful hadith, which we studied a part of it before that. علموا أولادكم الصلاة لسبع. Teach your children how to pray at the age of 7 and discipline them to perform the salah regularly at the age of 10. And then he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَفَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ, and keep them apart, separate, whenever it's time for sleep. That the children should not sleep on the same bed, should not sleep together on the same bed, even though that begins at the age of 10. Even if it is boys and boys and girls, we should separate them. You know, it's prohibited to let the children sleep together. You know, sometimes the kids go for a slumber party, or they attend a camp here or there, and they all sleep together. No, it is prohibited. We should really designate a special place for each child to sleep at the time of sleep, away from even his own brothers and sisters. Maybe in the same room. You know, and I understand you. I see that your eyes are telling me that, you know, most of
some Muslim families, I mean, they can't really afford separate beds for their children.
That's true.
So
I
what
mean,
should they do in this case?
I would have to admit that I lived with my brothers in the same room. You know, I didn't have my own room, so sometimes bunker beds help. But you know, if you don't have room for bunker beds, then لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. At least if they have to sleep on the same bed, that each child have to cover with a special cover, that they should not be covered by the same cover. This is very, very important. And not too many Muslims are aware of that. As a matter of fact, not too many Muslim parents are aware of the fact, awra and so on. And awra applies to even family members. So once I was attending a function and we're playing soccer and we had sweat and so on. So I was invited for a dinner to a family's house. And there, all the children ran to the shower to take a bath. So I said, MashaAllah, they must have a big shower where everyone has a, a
separate shower.
partitions and so on. Then I realized that it's only, just one bathtub and one shower. So I asked the parents, said, yeah, that's okay, they're brothers. I said, what do you mean? At the age of 10, 11, no way. They didn't really understand it's haram. And the awra is not only for strangers, no, it's also for family members.
Sisters, cousins.
So brothers amongst themselves are not to look at the awra of their brothers. And as I said, that even including parents.
What about in sports?
Even sports. Even if at school that they have to wear shorts, put your foot in, step your foot and say no. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. Swimming, sports, anything. Boys have to be separate from girls because that kindles fire, ignites sexuality even at young ages. I remember that the first day I was interested in making some activities in sports. I used to jog at the park, but then decided that I need to lift some weight and so on. So I was directed to a gym. And there they took me for a tour. Man, that was the worst experience I had. I mean, especially when they took me and they said, and that was going to be your locker room. And I didn't know what's the locker room. That you see people completely the same day that they were born. What is this? No shyness, no haya, no modesty whatsoever.
And they talk to each other. They're like, did you have a good workout today, Bob? Had a great one. And they're
As
naked.
a matter of fact, in camps, they do the same thing. So that's why I should not be very delighted that my son is going for a field trip or going for a camp, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I have to be aware of the fact that
It's Islamic.
what they're going to do there, what they're going to be taught, how will they behave, and whether it's mixed camps or not. It's your responsibility. You don't say, well, school and I didn't know.
We have to keep them, you have to put some internal and external supervision on them.
Yes, actually, when it comes to sexuality and protecting the modesty of your children, at different ages, the responsibility will be distributed equally between the parents and the society. So there is an internal homeland security and external. Internal security with the parents that, as I said, that you don't expose them to sexually stimulant materials, then you say, I don't know why they think this way. So they're flipping the channels every day, watching satellite TVs, watching
all the videos,
video clips,
like that.
singing, dancing, and mixing up women and men together, kissing and hugging, sometimes even having love affair, intimacy between men and women, and all of that. Then you say, I don't know what went wrong. What went wrong is that you raised them on that as this is normal. You didn't teach them the right way. Magazines, internet. Internet was never discussed in the past because they have never expected something like this. A machine could be of that much use and that much harm.
It's a double-edged sword.
Chatting, and especially now you can chat and see too. So it's a video conference. It's very, very dangerous. It's very useful that your child can get all the useful materials which is needed for his scientific education. Listen to beautiful recitation and speeches, audio, and see as well. And meanwhile, it could be misused and abused. So it's your responsibility to supervise that at home. Then outside, it is the responsibility of the guardian of the entire ummah. To control what movie theaters are airing. If it's my choice, guys, I wouldn't like to have a TV at home. Except for the fact that there are so many beautiful satellite TVs now, Islamic shows and so on, which are very, very educational. So I don't want to deprive my children from that. And good thing is, nowadays, whether it's internet or television, they have the parental control, where you can lock undesired scenes, undesired channels, so do that.
So if a parent want to drop their child to school in the morning, go back and pick them up in the afternoon, just to make sure that they don't have waste time walking home with other children and be influenced by them, this will not be considered like overprotective.
No, it won't be considered overprotecting your children. As a matter of fact, you should do that. We send our kids to sports clubs. hoping that they will, get some physical exercise and
energy.
education and so on, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, many of those clubs nowadays have the bad company, and the pressure of the peer is very, very strong. And as a matter of fact, you can lose your children between drugs, women, and all of that at the clubs. So don't you think that when you deposit your children in that place, they're safe? Yes. Even if it is safe, you have to be awake and aware. So you have to prepare your children for scenes like that, for situations like that. Bring to their attention the concept of taqwa Allah Azza wa Jal, the concept of قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, lowering one's gaze, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us to do that. We love Him and we want to please Him. You have to keep that in mind. And prepare them for the big event, which is
Marriage.
before marriage. Puberty. Adolescence. That unfortunately many kids have reached the puberty age. They had seen more of the signs of maturity and puberty,
And nobody taught them.
and nobody taught them.
Who would be best suited to teach? Like, would I be best suited to teach my son or my daughter?
Of course, the father is in charge for teaching the son, and the
Allahu
mother is
Akbar.
in charge for teaching the daughter. And if the family doesn't have a father, then an uncle, a grandfather, or an older person. And similarly, if there is no mother, you look for someone who's a lady to approach the girl. As I said, that in many cases, that especially with one of the symptoms of puberty is that wet dreams, which is a fact. And as a matter of fact, it's not really limited to boys or men. No, it's men and women. The Prophet ﷺ stated that it's actually men and women may have seen or will see wet dreams. In this case, seeing a wet dream, that requires ghusl, because actually there is a major impurity. Right. There is a sexual discharge from either a boy or a girl. So for the very first time seeing that, man, they are shocked. They don't know what to do. And they're embarrassed to talk to their parents. As a matter of fact, a child might think that he urinated while asleep, and the girl would assume so. So they would run to change, and they would just pray, make wudu, and pray, and go to school regularly. Why?
So
because the parents did not introduce to their children that that's a fact. And knowing that they're approaching this age, it is very, very important to address those issues in details. So for instance, for the boy, you have to explain to your son that it's normal and natural. And that means that you're an adult. What does it mean? It means from now on, you will be responsible for every action you do, for every word you utter.
And every action you don't do. Now you have
Once
to pray.
you reach the puberty age, now the record will be open, and the angels will start recording, so that everything which you used to do as optional and voluntary in the past in respect of ibadat becomes now mandatory. You cannot skip a prayer.
Yes.
And to pray, you have to remove the major impurity. Talking about ghusl. What's ghusl? I just take a bath. No. Just taking a bath is not sufficient. You have to do what? Take a bath with the intention of removing the major impurities. And teach them the fara'id and the sunan of taking a bath before being able to pray. Same thing with the daughter. The mother would teach her daughter. The problem is that many parents are not aware of that. So they have to acquire the enough and adequate knowledge to approach their children. So that you don't see a girl who's been seeing the menstruation for several months and she doesn't know. And out of shyness, she just prays and fasts. And maybe she goes to the masjid along with the family. And she holds the Quran because she doesn't know. Nobody instructed them as what they should do. I'm sorry, I know that you have a question.
The parents have to start teaching them, not wait till they ask them about that signs of attaining maturity.
Well, there are two things. That some kids who are raised in modern societies will not have a chance to be aware of anything like that. So the parents have to take the initiative and discuss this with their children. And once the children have questions, you have to prepare and ready for the answer. Never say, that's too bad. Never talk about that. Because if you don't answer them, somebody else will.
And I'll give them the wrong answers.
They'll
say, baby, that's all
You
right.
have to make sure that who's their companions, whom do they hang around with, and so on. So teaching and approaching their children concerning the hormonal changes and the puberty age is a very, very important thing, because it relates to the tahara and performing the ibadat. So talking about tahara,
It's time to make wudu and go to the masjid.
inshallah, we'll see you next time.
Inshallah.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما.